What's your thought process when facing a new opponent in fighting games? Do you play differently? Yeah, so I like to test them. So depending on what your character does, right, you want to try and feel them out. So like with Leroy, I know that down forward 1 is, I think it's -1 on blocks. That's more or less safe. I know that he's got a couple of plus frame moves, so I like to do all of the bits and pieces at the start of the round or at the start of the match to see what they fall for. And then once you can see what they do and don't know, that's when you start to abuse what you know until they figure out how to deal with it, and then you move back to the next thing. So like with Leroy, because his parry is so strong, usually you do it after a move that's not super punishable like -15, but punishable enough that, so like say -12 or something, because if you think they're going to go for a big punish, you can do the parry and then it puts the fear into them. Then that means, yeah, in MK it's the same thing. So like with Geras forward 2-1-2, I'll always do a down 1 straight away. No worries, man. I'll always do a down 1 straight away after forward 2-1-2 because it's -3 and my down 1 is 6 frames. So I like to check them with the down 1 straight away, see what they do. If they get hit by it, then you do it. You keep doing it basically until they can show you. See, that's the thing. So with fighting games, right, one of the key things people have to remember is that you don't owe the person you're playing absolutely anything. Unless they're your homie, in which case you're going to try not to do the absolute cheapest shit on them. But again, actually, that's how they learn. So, yeah, so you just keep do whatever you do that works to win. Eventually, you're going to reach a barrier where, maybe not so much in Mortal Kombat, but in other fighting games, you're going to reach a barrier where doing dumb shit will only take you so far. Yeah, honestly, Rich Boy, you don't owe the other person shit. You know, if they're going to get hit with down 1 hat spin 1,000 times in a row, you do down 1 hat spin 1,000 times in a row. If you think, oh, they're going to fall for down forward medium kick into Hadouken 1,000 times in a row, you do it 1,000 times in a row. If you've got Hell Sweep and you think they're going to get Hell Swept 1,000 times in a row, what are you going to do? You're going to Hell Sweep them 1,000 times in a row. That's the best way to approach fighting games. Never think, oh, I've hit this guy with the same move 6 times in a row, it's not fair. Hit that guy with 9,000 moves in a row. It's about winning. Obviously, to an extent, don't DDoS anybody or like rage quit, but you know, you don't owe the other guy anything. So that's like later on down the line. Eventually, like I said, you're going to run into people that know how to play, and they're going to start bopping you, and that's when you have to start actually learning the game. Dude, honestly, I was the same way, Rich Boy. I was the same way. When I first started playing fighting games online, I was like, oh, I've hit this setup 4 times in a row, so I'm not going to do it again because I don't want to upset the guy. F that. Did you see how many times today I've parried into parry with Leroy? I've got nothing. I owe these people nothing. If they want to play fighting games, they're going to learn. That's how they learn today, by getting bopped. And then next time we play, they might not get hit by the parry. You're teaching them by bodying them. That is the number 1 key thing. August said it in chat months ago, and it's absolutely true. Don't get salty from your defeats in a negative way. Always take that shit as a positive. If you're the one getting hit by down 1 hat spin, take a second, have a breath, be patient. If you know for 100% certainty you've got that read, they're going to do down 1 hat spin, let them kill themselves. Be patient. So that's the spectrum. So if you're new, do shit that you need to do to win. 2, once you start getting bopped, try and learn how you're getting bopped. And then thirdly, which is in relation to what Yankee just asked me, what's your new process? Once you've established what works and what doesn't work, that's when you start to mix it in a little bit. So you won't always do down 1 hat spin. You'll do it at the end of a round. Or you'll do it at the end of something, something cheeky, just to throw it out there, just to keep them on their toes. It's like a trump card. Like with me, with Geras, for some reason, forward 3 quicksand works. So I don't do it all the time. I'll only do it normally at the end of a round, especially when I've got the crushing blow locked and loaded. If they're on like 30%, if you do forward 3 sand trap, quicksand rather, they're dead. If they press a button after the forward 3, that's it. It's an execute basically. So, you just keep your little tricks just for when you need to use them. But yeah, that's about it really. No mercy. Just feel them out. Feel them out. If you do forward 3 sand trap and they block it straight away, then shit. Try something else. But you know, just try, like I always try with Leroy. I always do dash up hell sweep first thing, so that they know straight away that I'm not afraid to use it, right? And then that is what opens up the mid game, like the down forward 1, the orbitals. Now see see Yankee, that's the thing. So that's the mindset of, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but that is definitely the mindset of a new player. If you go back and watch my earlier games from today of Tekken when I was in the earlier ranks, not that I've got massively far since then, but if you go back and watch the earlier games, even just today, you'll see my opponents, they're not trying to do setups, they're not trying to do frame traps, they're not trying to do like sequences or set plays. They're literally just hitting you with a move and then going for another move. There's no thought process to it. They get the knockdown and then they think, oh well, I've got the knockdown with this move, I'm going to do it again. And that's the difference between a more advanced player and a beginner player. Is the more advanced player will go, alright, so this has worked on him and I've knocked him down, so now he's in this position. Opening up good players. Yeah, see, so that's the next step, Rich. That's the next step. Once you're aware of the stagger, because every game has staggers, Tekken has staggers, you don't always do, if you've got a string that's 1-1-1, you won't always 1-1. You might do 1 into throw or 1 into low poke. Like I said, diagonal down 1 is slightly minus, so I know in a game like Tekken, where, so one of the key things as well, which I would say that helps in fighting games, I know I might be going slightly off on a tangent here, but one of the key things you need to learn about in fighting games is what is the fastest punish. So what is the least punishable move? So in Mortal Kombat, the least punishable move in the game is 6 frames, depending if you've got Raiden's reversal. But usually you would say 8 frames, right? So if you've got a button that's less than 8 frames, that's when you learn that's when you've got to put that button out. So in Tekken, the fastest button is 10 frames. So if something is 0 or -1 or +1 on block, usually they're the buttons you want to throw out in a frame trap, because if somebody tries to punish with anything really less than or more than an 11 or 10 frame move, they're probably going to get counter hit. So do you see what I mean? That's when you start going into the layers. That's when you start opening people up. Is when you start staggering stuff that's not as obvious. So maybe not just if you're playing a top level player, for the most part they'll probably respect your plus frames. So you can try and do plus frame into throw. I mean, like Sub-Zero, like forward 4, for example, he's got a few things he can do off that because he's so plus. So when you're that plus, you know, you have options. But if you're only +1, +2, that's when you're going to start doing the flawless block afterwards to bait out the down poke. That's when you're going to duck afterwards to try to bait out the throw. So, yeah, that's a lot of information to take in one go. But I think all of that sort of stuff relates. It's basically how the attitude that people should have, especially if they're newer at fighting games, or like beginner to intermediate level at fighting games, is just that attitude of testing to see what works, and then ultimately trying to condition your opponent to the point where you can open them up with the other thing. So always try and have 2 things, or at least 2 things. Because if all you've got is down 1 hat spin, that will work for a certain, well, if it's against me, it's going to work 100% of the time because I'm rubbish. But if it's against somebody good, down 1 hat spin is only going to work a certain amount of time, and then you're going to get downloaded and you're going to get bopped. So yeah, that's my advice to you guys. But like, I'm going to peace out now for a couple of hours.